Hello and welcome to Dad's Our Job podcast, the original footballing podcast for dads by dads. This week I'm flying solo. Callum is gone AWOL, I don't know where he's gone, and Rob is working away this week. This week I thought, as I'm on my own, I am partial to the odd dad joke. I thought I'd review some of the top 10 or top 20 dad jokes that are available out online. So I thought, right, let's give this a go. I do love a dad joke. I mean, those that know me know I'm a very, I have a very bad taste in jokes. I'm always throwing out a pun somewhere along the line, but I almost feel that's a good coping mechanism for being nervous in a crowd. A bit like Chandler Bing from Friends, but that's me. That is me in a nutshell. Okay, so I'm going to read them and weep, literally, and so let's see how this goes. Right, okay. I've been diagnosed as colourblind. I know. It's certainly come out of the purple. Oh. Well, I don't know about that one. My new thesaurus is terrible. Not only that, but it's also terrible. I'm not too sure about that one either. Okay. Whoever figured out the days of the month correspond with your knuckles thing had a way too much time on their hands. Oh, fucking hell. This is going to be the worst podcast ever that I've done. Okay, what next? I used to be addicted to the hokey pokey, but then I turned myself around. I'm pretty sure it's the hokey cokey, isn't it? Again, I suppose that's what it's all about. That's a joke, and a joke that's just absolutely fell flat. Last night, me and my wife watched 3 films back to back. Luckily, I was the one facing the TV. Now, that's pretty good. Relatable. Very, very good. Let's see what else there is. What's the advantage of living in Switzerland? Well, the flag is a big plus. Very good. Very good. I just rolled my eyes. It's pretty sure we saw our actual brain just then. Okay, so why can't you hear a pterodactyl go to the bathroom? Because the P is silent. Yep. I don't know where I got these jokes from, but they are horrendous. I'm terrified of elevators, so I'm going to start taking steps to avoid them. I can see the pun. I bought shoes from a drug dealer once. I don't know what he laced them with, but I was tripping all day. Yep. I think this must be from an American website because I'm not too sure what this is all about. I wouldn't buy anything with Velcro. It's a total rip-off. Yeah, I've heard that a lot of times from Tim Vine. So it's very that is very, very Tim Vine-esque. I mean, I love Tim Vine. Tim Vine's one of my favourite ever comedians. In fact, I actually had a tweet conversation with Tim Vine many years ago when I was doing my three-sided football stadium concept as part of being a student and trying to do a design that was fit for a new version of the game football called philosophy football. And because it was 3 sides, it consisted of 3 teams, 3 goals and 1 ball. So I asked him to write a joke about it, and he actually come up with this within 2 minutes. He went, 3-sided football, it's a game of end to end to end. I mean, there's not often many times in life where you get a customised joke from probably one of Britain's most, I say favourite comedians. I know it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, isn't it? I mean, he is a very, very good comedian. Whether a lot of people like him or not is because of he's quite cheesy. Will be debatable, but I love Tim Vine. I think he's amazing. I really, really like him a lot. In terms of dad life this week, I mean, there's not really much to go on. The Wendy house is developing. The doors and the windows are in. the paint, the white paint has been added, the pink paint has been added, but obviously there's still a lot more work to go because obviously with the weather's been taking a turn for the worst last weekend. It was raining, and so I didn't want to go out there and undo all my hard work and hope and see all the paint running down the side of the shed and into the paving. So I left it this week. I put the essentials in. Connie's got all her toys inside. She's very, very happy and very, very pleased. And but yeah, there's a lot more. There's a bit more decorating bits to do, but she can use the playhouse now, which is great, and frees up the playroom to some extent because it was just getting overcrowded with toys. But that is the life of having a 3-year-old toddler who basically takes over your entire home now with all their toys. But we wouldn't have it any other way, would we? Wouldn't have it any other way. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a very, 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 very hard sort of week this week. Yeah, I mean, other sort of topics of conversation. I mean, there was a conversation that had to be had when we was at school, in terms of kids growing up, and when I went to school between the years 1998 to 2003. So those that went to school in that period at secondary school, could kind of relate to this in terms of what type of kid you was throughout those years. I mean, there were some kids that were that. And the best way to kind of relate to this would be TV programs. So you'd get some kids that would be the Pokemon fan, those that would come into school with their Game Boys playing Pokemon Red, Pokemon Blue, or Pokemon Yellow, trading cards and talking about Pokemon and having Pokemon bags and everything. You had those sort of kids, but at the same time, you also had the South Park kids. See, you had the kids that would like go and watch TV programs on Comedy Central that they weren't allowed to watch. But it was both TV shows were huge when I was growing up. I always liked Pokemon. I wouldn't say I was a massive fan of Pokemon, but I always liked playing the games because I like the games myself, and I tend to kind of dip into it sometimes when I've got an emulator on my phone or something like that, and if I've got a bit of time to kill, I'll play a little bit of it. But and also Pokemon Go now. I mean, when that first come out, everyone was jumping on the bandwagon and walking around with their eyes in their phones trying to catch a monster that isn't there. But then, like, with South Park again, like, I never really took to it that much at school. Obviously, you had to be. Yeah, I was more of a Jackass sort of guy, so I'd always stay up and watch MTV and watch Johnny Knoxville and that sort of stuff. But South Park was probably on around the same time on Comedy Central if you had satellite TV or cable, and it took. Didn't quite understand it at the time. Obviously, it's adult humour, but I kind of steered towards the characters, and there were certain phrases from Cartman and Kenny, and that just rolled off the tongue. That got repeated at school. So obviously, South Park was fashionable at the time. South Park's still fashionable, not gonna lie. But the older I've got, the more I've learnt to appreciate South Park in terms of the creativity from the two creators, and especially if you go down a TikTok minefield, you get to see a lot of the behind the scenes recordings of them just absolutely creasing themselves laughing, trying to put the voices on or trying to put a sketch together, and you can just tell that when they documented it years ago that they had so much fun doing it. I think it's Trey Parker, and I can't remember who the other guy is, but yeah, I think I enjoy watching the behind the scenes stuff, so you always kind of find that enjoyable, and I like seeing people have fun when they're being creative. So that now I come to learn or appreciate South Park more because I knew how much effort they put in. Not saying the people with Pokemon haven't put so much effort in, but. This is a great topic for Rob. I mean, Rob would be all over this in terms of Pokemon stuff. but yeah, I mean, that growing up, I wonder what sort of stuff when Connie's going to school between from 11 to 16. I wonder what sort of programs would be out then, or what they would kind of diverge to. I mean, Family Guy is always one that's. Oh, it was The Simpsons, wasn't it? And then you got Family Guy and American Dad, and I wonder what sort of adult cartoons will be out at that point in time that kids will kind of find fashionable. And I know Rick and Morty is very, very is over the past few years, especially like during COVID or whatever. Rick and Morty was always quite spoken about at school. Yeah, I mean, it'd always be interesting. I mean, when I was a kid, I loved The Simpsons. I mean, if there was a quiz about The Simpsons, I would know a hell of a lot about it. But I also love Futurama. I mean, I had the box sets, and again, it was always that kind of adult sort of humour that was attached to it, but it didn't have to go to the length of swearing or being crude about it. But it was borderline acceptable in terms of some of the jokes and stuff that they put out there. But I love Futurama. I mean, it's quite funny that I always remember one of the scenes where Fry would go and buy some chewing gum, and it was ham flavoured chewing gum. And you think, yeah, you could probably, looking back on it now, and you think actually that, there's so many different flavour concoctions now. Futurama was probably ahead of the time in predicting this sort of stuff. But because they haven't mastered what ham flavoured chewing gum was going to be like, he's chewing it and he spits it out. And then Bender says, well, what's the problem with your chewing gum? And he goes, oh, there's bones in it. And it's just little jokes like that, which I find quite funny. But like I say, I'm wondering about 10 years time, what will be current, what will be relevant at the time of the kids at school in terms of what they will catch on and what their craze and fad would be. It does always make me wonder what sort of environment kids will be like in the future. I mean, I know now, it's always it's a bit of a TikTok generation and social media, and I think there's been talks about in the government about the under 18s or under 16s being banned from social media because of the rising state of cyberbullying. So it's always quite interesting to kind of protect your kids at the most important years of their life, because they're trying to find out who they are and who they want to be, and trying to find their adult personality. And you're moulding brains at the end of the day, and they're most absorbent and when they're in their teenage years. So again, I don't have any teenage children, and Rob's on the cusp of having a teenage child himself. So maybe that's a topic of conversation to come. But in terms of dad stuff, this is quite hard to talk about on my own, really, to be fair. But so I'm trying to think of certain things that are going to be quite current and relevant. Obviously, looking back on, like you say, going back to the Pokemon v South Park kids, or more boys, if anything, there was always a division at school, wasn't there? And me being a fat ginger kid, always struggled in terms of making friends, and I was always an easy target. But I think what my dad done to me, which is also quite football assisted, was the fact that he called me Ginge from very, very early on. Like when I was 6 years old playing football for my local club, Romford Royals, and he would always say, "Come on, Ginge, go get a ball, Ginge," and my mates would call me Ginge and stuff like that. So by the time I went to school, the bullies would come out and say, "Oh, Ginger," and I'd be like, "Yeah," and they're like, "Oh, he's not affected by that." So I think that kind of set me up pretty well. But at school, I always felt that football was kind of that's why I'm a football fanatic, because I love talking about football. I watch football. I love the design of football. I love everything. It's my sort of escapism, if anything. But that always helped develop me in types of the person that I want to be, because I wouldn't say I was brilliant at football, but I could hold my own in a game, and because I used to play right back and then centre half, and I always used to do a pretty good defensive job when I used to play football. And it's always a position that's kind of not really the glamorous position when you're growing up, because everyone wants to be up front and score goals. I was more about getting my tackles in and making sure I didn't concede anything. I had a different sort of mentality at that time, and I think and because of that, I think because everyone wanted to play up front, I was always going to start games, because our football teams had 4 defenders and that was it, and then we had about 11 strikers, so you had to kind of try and rotate. Always used to get games because there weren't many defenders in the teams through a process of elimination. But that's how I got through school effectively. But when the boys are back, and we'll be able to talk about this a bit more often, but I hope the selection of dad jokes that I put on offer haven't turned you off this podcast straight away. But yeah, that is it. That is it for this week. Very short episode, especially on my own. But please come back to part 2 on our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at Dad's Our Job Pod, and the same handle for Instagram as well, at Dad's Our Job Pod. You can email us at Dad's Our Job Pod at yahoo.com or gmail.com, or whatever one you want to use. But we're really looking for the hit rate to help us on YouTube. I mean, as much as doing a podcast is brilliant, we'd like to do more on YouTube where possible, because I think seeing the video content, seeing our faces, seeing our expressions kind of helps you, the listener, see us and how much we enjoy what we do. So shoot over to part 2. We'll be talking about free transfers, talking about the England team, and talking about the upcoming Premier League fixtures, which, funny enough, West Ham are playing on April Fool's Day. So it's a joke in itself, effectively. But I'll be joined by someone who's new to the podcast. It will be Joe Street. He currently runs a YouTube channel called The Forfeit Fantasy Draft with. And he's a Chelsea fan, so hopefully we can try and get a few more fans from this sort of era watching us and listening to us. And and hopefully, tune into part 2 on YouTube. It's streamed live on Thursdays at 9 o'clock every week. And drop us a like, drop us a comment, subscribe, and I'll see you there. Thanks again, guys. See you soon. Bye.